Good morning and welcome to Atmosphere Maps Online. My name is Georgia and it's my pleasure to be your host today for the third webinar in our series on maps for business. The session today focuses on transport. We all know that maps are ubiquitous in this industry, and as we will see, in the geospace, Google is doing a lot to push forward the boundaries of what's possible with your data. The session today will run for around 30 minutes and will involve a presentation followed by a product demonstration. Throughout the presentation, feel free to ask any questions you might have via the Google form you can see to the right-hand side of your browser. You might also like to enlarge your screen by clicking on the full screen icon now. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker today. Ryan Caudle is one of our account executives based in Sydney, and he will be speaking in some detail about maps for business in the transport sector. So Ryan, over to you.
Thank you, Georgia. Hi, and thanks for joining everybody. I'm excited to be here, and it's fantastic that we have guests viewing from all across APAC region today. So welcome to everybody in India, Singapore, Australia, and beyond. My name is Ryan Caudle, and I look after Google's enterprise business for transport across Australia and New Zealand. Just bear with me as I start up some of the slides. Can everyone see that okay? If you've been following the tech news recently, you may have seen that Google has been investing an enormous amount of money and brainpower to revolutionize the transport industry. Over the past 6 months, Google has spent $1.3 billion acquiring crowdsourced traffic company Waze. We've launched an entirely new version of Google Maps, both for desktop and mobile, and we've welcomed 1,000 enterprise customers onto our new mobile application, Google Maps Coordinate. And lastly, Google X, our research and development team, has been making a huge advancement with Google's self-driving car initiative. We'll talk a little bit more about that later on. In terms of an agenda, we're going to spend the next 20 minutes covering just 3 key points. Number 1, what are the current trends in the transport industry? Number 2, an overview of Google's capabilities in this space. And number 3, we'll look at a case study. Let's get started. Just a quick check. Is everyone can see this all right? Georgia, all good to go? Yep. As a part of my role here at Google, I spend a large majority of my time with government and enterprises who are trying to tackle some of the most critical challenges facing transport. I was speaking with the CIO of a major transport and logistics company recently, and he asked me some very interesting questions. He said, Ryan, can I control the roads getting any wider? And I said, well, no, you can't. He said, Ryan, can we control the trucks going any faster? Or can we control the speed limits? I said, well, no, you probably can't do that either. And he said, Ryan, well, can I control the technology to ensure our trucks are making the most optimum deliveries, avoiding traffic, and viewing in real time traffic patterns to come? And I said, well, yes, actually, you can do that. And I suppose what that really highlighted for us is that technology increasingly is becoming the differentiating factor for companies to have a competitive edge in the marketplace to come. The other concerns we're seeing in the industry are increasing cost of fuel and operations, more traffic and congestion, growing greenhouse emissions, and increasingly limited real-time asset visibility. A similar story was published by Business Insider just a few months ago in the newspaper. It said that the United States Postal Service does not have the technology required to keep up with the growing e-commerce market. And this struck me as very interesting. The United States Postal Service has faced some of the largest losses in its history over the past few years, losing millions and millions of dollars as a result of dwindling letters and replacement by email and other digital technologies. The e-commerce market, in fact, represents the largest area for growth that USPS will have over the next 10 years. And it's actually technology that they require to seize this opportunity and to become fruitful in the years to come. Google, as you probably have learned by now, loves solving really big challenges. And we've put some of our smartest engineers towards solving the problems in transport. It's frustrating to me that the average commuter still spends about 40 hours per week sitting in traffic. Pictured here is one of Google's self-driving cars actually driving on the highways in California. And that's not to mention the environmental impact and the cost of gas of actually sitting in that traffic. Our self-driving car pictured here has actually already traveled 500,000 miles on the streets of California. And when you think about this, the possibilities really are endless. In the near-term future, parking within a central city business district will become way too expensive. Already in Sydney, it costs over $50 a day to park your car in an underground parking lot. What if your car could read your calendar, pick you up in the morning from your house, drop you off to your place of work just in time for the meeting that you had, and after it was done, it would go pick up your kid from your home and drive them to school? Afterwards, it could park itself outside of the city to reduce congestion in main urban environments and also save you money on parking. It's amazing that this future isn't that far away, and it really excites me to see what the possibilities are in this space. On a similar note, Google recently spent $1.3 billion acquiring crowdsourced traffic company Waze. Now, Waze is an application that you download either to Android or iOS, and it allows you to report in real time what's happening with the traffic outside. You can report things like police speed cameras, you can report traffic accidents, or you can report road closures. And this is all crowdsourced and sent back to users of the application such that they can make better decisions about how they drive, how they get to work, and ultimately spend less time sitting in traffic. So far, the statistics have been incredible. Waze has announced that 50 million hours of time has been saved sitting in traffic. What that equates to is 82 entire human lifetimes. Unfortunately, I don't have any self-driving cars for sale today to you. I really wish I did. So one of the questions is, how can Google help your company right now by using our technologies? Well, our commercial solutions are based on 3 foundational pillars. Number 1, we want to help customers make better decisions. Number 2, we want to help optimize people and assets. And number 3, we want to engage your users. And that's regardless of the device, regardless of the place, online or offline. I'm going to take a couple seconds right now just going through some specific Google Enterprise geotechnologies that your company can use right now to build solutions. And it's amazing, actually, because the geo problems are much more common than you think. If you see a few of these use cases here, there are a wide range that Google is helping all sizes of companies solve today. A specific out-of-the-box application that we've released is called Google Maps Coordinate. It's both an iPhone and Android app combined with a web-based desktop portal. It can be set up in under 10 minutes. I've actually done it myself. And it scales to tens of thousands of users without the need for any investment in complex hardware or back-end systems. Google takes care of all the complexity behind the scenes. Another example of a technology that's ready to use today is our Google Directions API. You can use this service to send Google delivery addresses, and we will automatically solve the traveling salesman problem for you. We'll show you the best way to deliver all of the packages on your route in the most efficient way, and we'll even let you know how much time that will take in current traffic as well. The third specific technology I wanted to share is called our Google Tracks API. And it's used by companies who have many assets or many vehicles in their fleet. And the platform is used to store, manage, and query millions of GPS crumbs using Google's cloud. It's perfect if you have a fleet of vehicles and you need to record their movements over time and play those back in reporting for management afterwards. The additional capability that Tracks API comes with is that it does geofencing that allows you to trigger alerts based on the location of your assets. The last and most recent technology I wanted to share with you is one of our newest, and this was just launched at Google I/O 2013 a few months ago. This is called the Activity Recognition API for Android. This technology is amazing. It uses all of the sensors on your phone in a brilliant way and allows you to develop customized apps that understand if a person is driving, walking, or riding their bike. But how are these technologies being used today? Well, we've seen enormous excitement in the marketplace as a result of all of these innovations. In November last year, there was an article published in the local paper that showed Linfox had deployed a customized app for all of their drivers, which is thousands of trucks across Australia and the Asia-Pacific region, based on the Google Android operating system. It's a great example of taking the best of Google's technology and merging it with your enterprise. Another example I wanted to share with you is a company you should be very well familiar with, FedEx. They've taken a huge amount of their business data, pickup times, drop-off points, store locations, and more, and they've combined it with the best of Google's data, Street View, directions, maps, and even satellite view. Of course, Google Maps will always offer an incredible user-friendly experience, whether that's on desktop, tablet, or mobile. And like I said before, these technologies are increasingly being used both in online capabilities and offline. For a look at how this might get built in the real world, let's use the FedEx example that we just went through. Let's take a Google base map, and let's add third-party data to this base map, such as weather, road construction nearby. And then FedEx might put their own data on top of this. It could be such information as delivery depots, customer addresses. We'd add on high-resolution imagery, so recent satellite imagery, potentially more recent than Google Earth. And then we'd add assets on top of that. So the real-time location of FedEx vehicles delivering actual packages to customers in real time. And what you get is a very holistic picture that's more valuable than the sum of the parts. One example that I like to think of is during Hurricane Sandy. If they had the weather data coming in and they could see the hurricane coming over the coast of New York, and they knew all of their trucks were located in a particular region, but their customers were in a whole other region, FedEx could have made the decision to move all of those trucks to avoid the impact of the hurricane and be ready to make the deliveries as soon as operations were back up and running. This would make sure to have a minimum impact on the business and maximum return for customer service. So in terms of key takeaways, I just wanted you to remember that, number one, technology is transforming transport. It's unavoidable, it's happening at a rapid pace, and if technology trends keep up, the pace will only increase with time. Number two, Google is betting big in transport. We've already spent $1.3 billion to acquire traffic company Waze, and we've built specific technologies that you can use in your enterprise today to get started to build your own tools. Number three, go mobile. The increasing use of mobile is proliferated throughout all of our tools, and your customers already have gone mobile. Number four, Google's Geo tools help customers to make better decisions, optimize people and assets, and build amazing apps. If you'd like to get in touch, I think Georgia will have some information on how you can contact us at the end of the Hangout. But without further ado, I'd like to hand it over to Alvaro so we can take a look at some of these technologies in action. Alvaro, over to you.
Actually, Ryan, before we move over to Alvaro, a couple of our questions and a couple of our audience members would like to ask you some questions, if that's okay.
I tried to escape that, but all right, if we must, yeah.
First question is, where do you buy a self-driving car? No, just joking. There are no self-driving cars. So right now.
Okay.
Ryan, have there been any recent use cases of Maps Engine in transport that you find particularly compelling that you can talk to us about?
Sure, no problem. So I might just share my screen very quickly. One very good example, this is located in Australia, but New South Wales, Transport for New South Wales, it manages all of the roads in Australia, in New South Wales, and we have an event coming up called the International Fleet Review. One of the challenges that they had is they had a lot of kind of information behind the firewall in terms of what roads were going to be shut down, areas that were going to be busy, special events that it would impact, so sites like the Sydney Opera House, for example, and they needed a way to communicate this out to many, many people in a very short time frame. They contacted Google, and I spoke with them just probably 4 weeks ago, told them about Google Maps Engine, which is our cloud-based mapping platform, And within about a week, they had developed this website that you see here. It shows all of the road closures over kind of the course of October 3rd to 11th, so it's coming up. And in real time, what they'll be doing is actually changing all of these locations on the map to show which roads are closing, which roads are opening, and the impact to people who are trying to get around Sydney at that time. So that's an example of the company, in Australia using our geotechnologies right now.
Very nice. Thanks for sharing that with us, Ryan. Would you say that you're seeing any differences in how the public and the private sectors are using Google Maps or Google Earth?
So it's a very good question, actually. So I think the great thing about Google Maps and Google Earth is that it can get information out to many, many people easily in a beautiful and easy to use experience. And that's the same experience that you get with, obviously, Google Maps or Google Earth, right? I think in the public domain, so particularly with government, is that they often want to not share their information out. There's a lot of private information that they have, right? In that instance, companies like, or organizations such as Department of Defense or Australia Federal Police are a large customer of ours, but obviously, don't share the work that they do outside of the organization. So Google has very good security policies, mechanisms to actually keep that data within your own environment and share out only what's public to everyone else. So I think that's really the difference, is just making sure that companies know that they can have their private data and they can have that in a secure environment offline, on-premise if required.
Great, okay. Thanks, Ryan. So now we're going to move it over to Alvaro, who's going to take us through a product demonstration today. Alvaro, thanks very much for joining us on this session.
Hi, and thanks for joining, everyone. As Ryan said, the Google Maps technologies allow transportation companies to actually build some pretty interesting applications, focus on their business, and to meet their business requirements and make more informed decisions. In the demonstration, we'll go through a couple of examples that actually show a bit of this. So let me just start sharing my screen here, and we'll get on to the demo. So the three examples that we're going to be covering are going to be talking about visualizing your data and going through that layering effect that Ryan discussed. Then we'll have a quick look at Google Maps Coordinate and how that can be used to manage your field assets and jobs. And then finally, look at simple applications that will help increase the customer satisfaction levels and customer engagement. So in this first example, you can see a simple website that would allow an operations team within a company, a transport company, or anyone dealing with transport or with sales territories to have a look at their data. It's a Google map, a familiar Google map that's been stylized to actually help the organization see their business data on top of the map. So if we think of trying to solve a problem of reorganizing or looking at how a specific territory might be looking, we can easily make use of some of the find attributes or find a place on the map and then start using the default layers that are available. In this case, we've just zoomed to an area near the city of the Sydney CBD and start looking at what the traffic conditions are around that area. So apart from the traffic layers, we could add other layers that are available to use through the Maps API, like the bicycling layer or the transit layers. This gives the team or the person doing the analysis a better, clearer picture of what the actual reality is in the field. So let's just keep back with the traffic layer. And on top of the traffic layer, then we want to try and look at what our sales territories might look like. So in this case, we've got several polygons that represent the different territories that have been defined for the business. In this example, where we see the territory around Parramatta, we see that it's quite a large extent. Now, to better understand what that territory is like, we can turn on other layers of information that might include things like the pickup or delivery outlets that the vehicles have to visit. In this case here, we see that there are a couple of clusters potentially around this area and around this area. depending on the number of vehicles that might be servicing this area, we can think of potentially splitting that territory. So by having this information on top of a Google map, it's easy to turn it on, visualize, and understand where the problem areas might be. On top of that information, we could keep drilling down and looking at existing customers and where their location is. In this example, the dots represent different tiers of customers, and the purple dots represent higher tiered customers. So again, we do see that there are clusters and that there's a potential for splitting out the territory. So that's just one quick example. Another example we can look at is trying to understand what existing vehicles or existing routes might be doing. In this example, we go to the North Sydney area where we've got a vehicle that has a predefined route with several stops along the way. We can see that it goes through several customer sites, and on the left-hand side, we actually get some information as to how much that route is costing me and costing the business in terms of drive time and drive distance, fuel cost, trip duration, and an overall cost of the job. If you think of driving that route, it's going to be 16 kilometers in total, a fuel cost of $3, 30 minutes trip duration, and a total job cost of $40 based on, let's say, an hourly wage rate. But the operator of a portal like this can actually start to do a bit of analysis, and again, going back to thinking, okay, this vehicle might actually just want to focus on jobs around this area. As the route is redesigned by simply dragging on different points or different stops along the route, the values are changing, and the decision can be made to have this vehicle have a predefined route that focuses just on this area. And we can think of then having another vehicle that would go in and service this other area. In another example of a predefined route, we can see an example where there is a predefined route that is crossing over to a different territory. So there's two territories that have been defined here, and it's going over and stepping and stopping inside this territory. Again, if we make modifications, we can bring in and try and service these customers that are here. But bringing in other information that tells us where the new customers or the new jobs are in this new region might actually help us make a decision as to, okay, yeah, we definitely have to bring this route back in here and start servicing all these customers. Again, information is provided here as to what and how to get to those locations, and the costing of that job is displayed on the left-hand side dynamically. So the operations team, the analysts, can start to make decisions on what that's going to look like. In another part of the business, the dispatcher could be using Google Maps Coordinate, and this is what they would be seeing. In this case, by selecting one of the team members, they can see where that team member has been. The sort of point cloud that's created here shows the visits that this team member has been, where they've been during the day. And by basically just sliding through, it immediately lets me animate that. Apart from that, I've got a history of the jobs that field worker has gone through and what they've been doing in the last couple of days. And then we also see back the new jobs that have been recorded in other parts of the business. So all that information is available to the dispatcher to actually start doing and scheduling jobs to the available team members within Google Maps Coordinate. If we look at the history of the jobs, we can actually see all the jobs that have been scheduled for a given month in a list view and what's been done, who's been doing the different jobs. But we can also use the map. So the map clusters out all the different jobs that have been done in a specific location and lets me immediately go and see, okay, this job has been done, it's completed, and this was the driver or the field person that actually went to do the job. Finally, we can look at planning. So this is something that's quite new, and it allows dispatchers to optimize the jobs. In this case, we've got a set of jobs that have been that are still need to be done by someone. We've got a list of workers that are available to do a job. A dispatcher can select who is to do these jobs and try and run an optimization in seeing other jobs or potentially dragging jobs and assigning them manually if required. So with Google Maps Coordinate, it's quite simple, and a dispatcher can easily go in and have a look at what they need to do to better service the customers. Finally, with the customer engagement, I'm sure that many of us have been and gone through the pain of trying to understand where my delivery is or where my service technician is, and a simple portal like this could help a lot. So if we think of the same company trying to deliver a parcel to a customer, I might have a parcel ID that I just enter, and by using the site, I can easily just have a look at where it is. Let me just do something. So enter a parcel, find it. So it not just gives me where it is, but it tells me this vehicle has gone to different locations. This is its last stop, and this is where it's meant to go. So while it's the last leg is from here to here, it's already showing me that this is its expected route. I can then try and find out how long it's going to take for this vehicle to actually get to its destination. In this case, it also tells me that the vehicle has last reported a location at this time, and as a customer, I can go in and try and contact the driver if I have to. It is also adding on the traffic layer. So as a customer expecting a delivery or service technician visit, I can understand he's going to be going through this route, but there's a bit of traffic, so I might give him a bit of time to get instead of in 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes to get back to me. So this is just another example, a quick example of how an easy-to-use application can be built for customer satisfaction and customer engagement. So just to recap on the different things that we've covered in this demonstration, the first thing was on planning and visualizing the data and getting some information, some business information as to how much it's costing me to run that job. The second example was with field workers and optimizing field workers and see the activity of all my field workers. And then finally about customer engagement, a simple application that quickly lets users or external users log in and see where my delivery is, making sure that this will improve customer satisfaction. So that's the end of my demonstration. Let me just go back and see if there are any questions.
Thanks very much, Alvaro. We actually do have a question. Just one before we wrap up here.
Yep.
So we have a viewer that wonders what environments they can view Maps Engine in. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. So Maps Engine data sort of becomes a central repository that serves out data to different types of applications. It can serve out data to a web mapping application built with, let's say, the Google Maps API, for example, or it can serve out data to a Google Earth client. So a traditional Google Earth client can go into a Maps Engine repository and download it and add that layer into Google Earth. And then there was the potential to bringing those layers of information to other web applications through, for example, WMS services.
Thank you.
No worries.
Thanks for joining us, Alvaro. So that brings today's session to a close, everyone. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us. If you would like to discuss any of what you've seen today further with us at Google, please do get in touch via the Maps Earth website. The domain name for that is www.google.com/enterprise/Maps Earth/. Please also take a moment to complete the feedback survey that you can access via the green button at the top of your browser window. And lastly, we hope that you can join us for other Hangout and Air sessions that we'll be running over the next few weeks. For session details, do keep an eye out for further emails from us at Google, or follow the Google Enterprise page on Google+. Thanks very much, everyone, and have a really great rest of the day.
Bye, guys.
See you later.